I am Elena, 26 years old, and a junior associate at one of the most powerful law firms in the country. 3 months ago, I was in an emergency room, recovering from an attack that left me with nerve damage in my arm and blood matting my hair. The worst part was not the pain, but the memory of my mother, Isabella, standing in the doorway of my own corporate apartment, her eyes empty, watching as her husband, my stepfather Marco, tried to end me. He broke in, fueled by a rage I had known my whole life. Before I lost consciousness, I managed to send one text message. It was not to the police. It was a message that saved my life. Before I share how my new family at the firm changed my life forever that night, let me know where you are watching from. And hit that subscribe button if you believe your real family is the one you build, not the one that tries to tear you down. My childhood was perfect. Until it was not. I grew up in a house my father designed himself. He was a brilliant architect, and I was his shadow. We lived in a quiet suburb where my parents loved each other and loved me. Dad taught me how to read blueprints before I could read novels. Mom, a university librarian, taught me the power of research. We were a unit. Weekends were spent visiting construction sites, going to museums, and having long dinners where we debated everything. I was their only child, and I had all their focus and all their love. Everything ended on a sunny Tuesday in May. I was 12. My father was at a client meeting when he suffered a massive brain aneurysm. He died before he even hit the floor. I remember the phone call, my mother's hand flying to her mouth, the shattering sound of her coffee mug hitting the kitchen tile. Her scream is a sound that still echoes in my nightmares. The following months were a blur of polite condolences and casseroles from neighbors that rotted in our fridge. My mother, Isabella, collapsed. She did not just grieve, she evaporated. She quit her job at the university. Most days, she never left her bedroom. I was 12 years old, and I learned to pay the bills online, how to make dinners from canned goods, and how to do laundry. So we had clean clothes. I became the caretaker of our silent leaven. Darkening house. The financial problems started almost immediately. My father had life insurance, but he was an architect, not a hedge fund manager. He had believed in investments, in projects. He had not believed in dying at 45. The bills piled up. Red past due stamps became a common sight on our kitchen counter. My mother started selling off my father's art, then his watch collection, just to keep the lights on. Her depression deepened. I would find her staring at his old blueprints, just tracing the lines with her finger, completely vacant. 2 years later, when I was 14, Marco entered our lives. He was a financial advisor referred by a distant family friend. He was tall, wore expensive suits, and had a smile that seemed to bring my mother back to life. He sat at our kitchen table, looked at the stacks of red-stamped envelopes, and told my mother, "This is just a numbers problem. I can fix this." He fixed things around the house. He brought groceries. He made my mother laugh, a sound I had not heard in 2 years. At first, I was so grateful. I was exhausted from being the adult. Marco felt like the answer to our prayers. He took us to nice dinners. He helped my mother consolidate her debts and refinance the house. He even bought me a new laptop for school. He was charming, attentive, and seemed genuinely invested in our well-being. 6 months after he sat at our kitchen table, he and my mother were married. The wedding was small, just a courthouse ceremony. My mother wore a simple cream suit and looked, for the first time, happy. Marco moved in that day, bringing his leather suitcases and his expensive car. The changes were subtle at first. Marco suggested my mother didn't need the stress of finding a new job. He could support them. He offered to handle all the finances, since they clearly stressed her out so much. He would look at the mail from my father's side of the family and say, "They only call when they need something. Maybe we should just keep our new life private." Within a year, my mother had no access to her own bank accounts. She had to ask Marco for grocery money. Our visits to my father's parents stopped. "It's a long drive," Marco would say. and gas is expensive. Besides, they just make you sad. I noticed Marco had two personalities. To the outside world, he was the generous, successful man who had saved a widow and her daughter. At home, he was controlling and critical. His anger was a low hum beneath the surface of our lives. He critiqued my mother constantly. Her cooking was bland. Her clothes were frumpy. If dinner was 5 minutes late, he would sigh and say, "I guess I'll just handle it," making himself a sandwich while my mother apologized. If she bought a brand of coffee he did not like, he would lecture her for an hour on financial responsibility. The worst part was watching my mother change. The brilliant, sharp woman who once curated university archives became someone who flinched when Marco's keys hit the table. She started checking with him before making any decision. "Do you think Marco will mind if I buy this brand of soap?" She lost weight. The spark in her eyes just died. By the time I was 16, our house was a prison. We walked on eggshells. Marco never hit my mother. Not then. But his emotional and financial abuse was a constant, suffocating pressure. He had isolated her. He convinced her she was incapable of managing her own life. He had made her worthless without him. One night, I confronted her. Marco was at a business dinner. I was 17, studying for my SATs. "Mom," I asked, "why do you let him treat you like this?" She turned to me, her eyes vacant. "He keeps a roof over our heads. Elena, he saved us. Not everyone gets a second chance. Sometimes you have to accept the bad with the good." What bad? What was I not seeing? The questions kept me awake at night, especially as Marco started directing his criticism at me. My grades, always perfect. I were not good enough for the scholarships I wanted. My chores were half done. He called me ungrateful. "I pay for this house." He would remind me, "I pay for that food you're eating." He started limiting my time with friends. They're not ambitious. They're bad influences. When a brochure from Yale Law School arrived, he picked it up from the mail stack and threw it directly into the trash. "Law school," he laughed. "What a waste of money. It's a man's game. Elena, you're too sensitive. You'll just get married and waste the degree anyway." The tension in our house was thick enough to cut. My mother became the frantic mediator. "Just do what he asks." "Elena," she would whisper, "it's easier. Don't make him angry." By my senior year of high school, I knew I had to escape. Marco had made it clear. He expected me to go to the local community college, live at home, get a part-time job, and contribute to the household. My mother needed me, he said. The truth was, he needed another person to control. He needed another way to tighten his grip on my father's house. I watched my mother disappearing, becoming a ghost in her own home. The irony was crushing. How could I honor the woman who had taught me to be strong, while watching her surrender her own power? I knew I could not get out if I followed his plan. I would be trapped, just like her. So I made my own plan. I used the laptop he had bought me. I used the research skills my mother had taught me. I applied for every single hyper-competitive scholarship I could find. The ones that covered tuition, room, board, and books. I did it at the public library, using their computers. I had my acceptance letters and financial aid offers sent to my best friend's house. The confrontation came the night of my high school graduation. Frank sat at the kitchen table, the same table where he had promised to save us. "I got you an interview," he announced, sliding a paper across the table. "It's a receptionist job at my friend's insurance office. Starts Monday. You'll give me half your check for room and board." I looked at the paper. I looked at my mother, who was staring at the floor. This was the moment. "I can't take the job," I said. Marco's eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" "You can't. I'm leaving in August," I said, my voice cold and steady. "I received the Wharton Foundation scholarship. It's a full ride to law school. Everything is paid for." What followed was the worst explosion our house had ever seen. Marco's face turned a dangerous shade of purple. He slammed his fist on the table. "You did what?" Without my permission, she doesn't need your permission. Marco, my mother said. Her voice was a terrified whisper. But she said it. It was the last time I ever heard her defy him. He turned his rage on both of us. He threw his coffee mug against the wall, shattering it. He called me ungrateful, stupid, rebellious. He said I was abandoning my mother. He threatened to throw me out that night. He threatened to cut me off. I just stood there, and for the first time, I saw his rage for what it was. It was not strength. It was weakness. He was a bully who controlled people because he was terrified of not being in control. That realization was like a switch flipping in my brain. I was not afraid of him anymore. I was making the right choice. The weeks before I left were unbearable. Marco gave me the silent treatment, punctuated by snide comments. I hope you enjoy being in debt, he'd say, even though I told him it was a full ride. Don't come crawling back when you fail. The night before I left, he cornered me in the hallway. His breath smelled like whiskey. You think you're so smart, he hissed, grabbing my arm. You think you're better than us. Mark my words. You will regret this. And when you come back with your tail between your legs, don't expect me to help you. Or her. I pulled my arm away, my heart hammering. I will never come back to this house while you are in it, I said. It was a promise. The next morning, my friend's mom drove me to the airport. My mother hugged me at the door. She was trembling. I'm so proud of you, she whispered, slipping a small envelope into my pocket. You're so brave, just like your father. Marco stood in the doorway, his arms crossed. He said nothing. His silence was a threat. As the car pulled away, I looked back. My mother stood on the porch, small and fragile. Marco's hand was on her shoulder. Gripping it tightly, that image burned into my memory. It was the image that fueled me through every all-night study session, every brutal exam. It was the reminder of why I had to succeed. In the envelope, I found a faded photo of my dad at his drafting table, and a short note from my mom. He would be so proud of the woman you've become. Stay strong. I love you. Those words were my armor as I flew toward a future I could not even imagine, leaving behind the only home I had ever known. Law school was exactly as brutal as everyone had warned. The first night, lying in a tiny, sterile dorm room, surrounded by the casual, confident chatter of students who had never known a day of financial fear. I questioned my decision. The sheer volume of reading was a physical weight. The intellectual demands were crushing, and the homesickness was a sharp, physical ache. I was not homesick for the house Marco had poisoned with his control and his whiskey-laden breath. I was homesick for the mother I had left behind, the woman who whispered, I'm proud of you, while trembling in fear. I was abandoning her, leaving her alone with the monster. This internal monologue was a constant presence. He will take this out on her. But I had to crush that thought. Pity was a luxury I could not afford. Sentiment was a weakness. I remembered his parting words. You'll come crawling back. That memory was my fuel. As the days turned into weeks, something else happened. I discovered a strength I never knew I possessed. The girl who had walked on eggshells for years, who had learned to make herself small to avoid Marco's attention. I found her voice. I was not just surviving, I was thriving. My body learned to function on 4 hours of sleep and endless cups of black coffee. My mind sharpened, learning to dissect complex arguments, find the fatal flaw, and build an airtight case. I was not just studying law, I was learning how to build weapons. I remembered Marco's laugh. A man's game. Elena, you're too sensitive. His words. His stupid, arrogant words. He was a fool. He thought sensitivity was weakness. He had no idea that my sensitivity was actually observation. I had spent years observing him. I knew how bullies thought. I knew how abusers manipulated. I was now learning how the system could dismantle them. Most importantly, I found a sense of purpose. I was not just running from something. I was running toward something. I was building a fortress, brick by brick. With every case I memorized, every mock trial I won, My 8-year-old self had made a promise: I will never come back to this house while you are in it. My 20-year-old self made a new one, and I will come back for her. My second-year internship was at Harrison and Sterling, a firm legendary for its cutthroat corporate litigation department. I got the position over hundreds of other applicants, many of them legacies from Ivy League families. I got it because, during my interview, Mr. Harrison himself had asked me a simple question: why law? I looked him in the eye. Because I don't like bullies. Seer. He hired me on the spot. Mr. Harrison was in his late 60s, with eyes that seemed to see right through you. He was tough, demanding, and did not tolerate fools or laziness. He saw the desperation in me, the raw, unrefined hunger to succeed. He assigned me to cases no one else wanted, the document-heavy discovery pits that required thousands of hours of meticulous review. I did not complain. I just worked. One evening, I was the last one in the office, rewriting a discovery motion for the third time. It was 2 a.m. He stopped by my cubicle. He was holding a cup of coffee. You're still here. Elena. It's not right yet. Sire. The counter-argument in their last filing was weak, but I missed the precedent that invalidates it. I found it now. He nodded slowly, looking at my color-coded notes. You've got more in you than just hard work, he said, his voice surprisingly gentle. You've got fire, but you're holding it back. You're afraid of it. He was right. Whatever you are running from, he continued, you can't just run. You have to learn to outwork it, outthink it. Use that fire. Turn it into a tool. Don't let it just burn you from the inside out. His words hit me. I had been holding back, afraid to fully commit, as if succeeding would somehow be a betrayal, would make my mother's situation worse. After that, I threw myself into the work. I finished in the top 5% of my class. Harrison and Sterling offered me a full-time position as an associate before I even had my diploma. My first paycheck was more money than my mother had seen in years. I did not buy a car or designer clothes. I rented a small but secure apartment in a high-rise building with a 24-hour doorman and key fob-only elevator access. A corporate apartment. It was my fortress. For the first time in my life, I controlled my own space. I controlled the locks. No one criticized my choices. No one monitored my coming and goings. This small, simple freedom was intoxicating. Work provided structure, purpose, and a new family. I excelled. I was the first one in and the last one to leave. My specialty became forensic accounting in high-stakes corporate divorces. I had a knack for it. I knew how to find money that controlling men tried to hide. It felt familiar. I earned a reputation for my meticulous research and my refusal to back down in discovery. My superiors noticed. The promotions came steadily. Each one felt like another layer of armor, another brick in the wall, erasing years of Marco's belittling. My battle buddy at the firm was David, another associate who had also clawed his way up from a difficult background. His father was a union worker who had been crippled in a factory accident, and David had fought the insurance companies for years. He was tough, cynical, and brilliant. He understood the drive. We're the survivors. Elena, he told me one night over cheap takeout at the office. We don't have a trust fund. We don't have a family name to fall back on. We are the safety net. He and the other associates, the paralegals, even the partners like Mr. Harrison, they became the family I chose. They were a family that valued me for my mind and my work ethic, not for what they could control. Communication with my mother became increasingly difficult. At first, we spoke every Sunday at 10 a.m., always when Marco was supposedly at the hardware store or meeting a client, but his meetings became less predictable. Our calls grew less frequent. Her texts became short and cryptic. Everything is fine. Honey, busy here. Love you. Sometimes, weeks would pass with just that. My stomach was in a constant knot. I remembered her terrified whisper, just do what he asks. Elena, It's easier. She was trapped in that easier life. And I was powerless to get her out. 3 years into my career, I was promoted to junior associate. It was a huge milestone, putting me on the partner track. The ceremony was small, just the partners in the main conference room. But Mr. Harrison himself shook my hand. We knew you had it in you. Elena, your work ethic is unmatched. That night, I called home. I was so proud. I wanted her to hear something good. But Marco answered. His voice was slurred. The familiar, sickening sound of whiskey in his words. It triggered an automatic tension in my shoulders. Harrison and Sterling. He slurred into the phone. To what do we owe the pleasure? Hello. Marco. I'm calling for Mom. Well, he sneered. If it isn't the big shot lawyer. The big shot lawyer. That old insult. He was so arrogant. So dismissive. He was a fool. He had no idea what kind of power I was actually building. He still saw me as that 7-year-old girl. He had no idea I now had the resources of one of the most powerful law firms in the state behind me. Calling to brag about your little promotion, he continued, his voice dripping with contempt. That's nice. Your mother is busy, taking care of me, like a good wife should, unlike some ungrateful brats who abandon their family. I almost hung up. The rage was instant and cold, but I forced myself to stay calm. A good lawyer never shows emotion. May I please speak with my mother? Marco. I heard a muffled sound. Him covering the phone. His voice a low growl. Then, my mother's voice. Thin and breathless. Elena, is that you? Honey, yeah. Mom, it's me. I got promoted to junior associate today. Oh, sweetheart. That's wonderful. Her voice was strained. I could hear Marco muttering something in the background. Her voice dropped to a terrified whisper. I can't talk long. He's having a bad day. Mom? I asked, my blood running cold. Are you okay? Has he hurt you? No. The denial was too fast. It was frantic. Nothing like that. Just stress. He lost a big investment. One of his clients pulled out. And you know how he gets when he's worried about money. We talked for a few more minutes. But it was useless. She was afraid to speak. As we said goodbye, she added, I miss you, Elena, more than you know. That call haunted me. The fear in her voice, the careful, chosen words, the background noise of Marco's anger, it all pointed to a situation that was deteriorating. A week later, I started receiving the strange, cryptic texts, always in the middle of the night. Remember where Dad kept his old architectural models in the attic? My internal alarms went off. My father's models. He kept his most important original blueprints, the ones for our house rolled up inside the largest model. The house was his design. His intellectual property. Another text. The neighbor's dog got loose again. Dug up the old rose bushes by the porch. The rose bushes. That's where my mom and I had buried a small time capsule when I was 10. Inside was her mother's jewelry. The pieces she had told Marco she'd sold years ago to pay the bills. She had lied to him. She had hidden something. I tried calling immediately after each text, but she never answered. My team at the firm noticed the change in me. I was distracted. On edge. Staring at my phone. David, in particular, knew something was wrong. One night, over another late-night case file, he just looked at me. Spill it. Elena, you look like you're about to commit a felony or have a breakdown. Or both. I confided everything to him. The history with Marco. The financial control. The new cryptic texts. My growing fear that the verbal abuse had become physical. Elena, he said, his face serious. You're a lawyer. You know the signs. This is classic escalation. These texts aren't nostalgia. They're a cry for help. She's telling you where the assets are. What if I go there and it just makes it worse for her? I voiced my deepest fear. He'll take it out on her after I leave. And what if you don't go? David countered. You have resources now. You're not that 8-year-old kid anymore. You're an associate at Harrison and Sterling. We protect our own. Go. Figure it out. He was right. After another week, I received a text that was just a blurry photo. It was a picture of a new, high-end blender on the kitchen counter. The caption, "He's in a good mood again. He bought me a gift. Everything is fine." Everything was not fine. I zoomed in. In the reflection on the blender's polished chrome surface, I could see my mother's face. She was holding the phone, and on her cheek, stark and purple, I could see the distinct shadow of a bruise. I went to Mr. Brassis, Harrison's office the next morning. My hands were steady. My voice was ice. "Sir, I need to request 1 week of personal leave. It's a family emergency." He looked at me over his glasses, his expression unreadable. He knew my work ethic. He knew I would not ask unless it was critical. "Family first. Elena," he said, nodding. "Go. Handle it. And," he added, "let me know if you need anything. Anything at all?" The night before my flight to Ohio, I received one last text from my mother. "Please don't come. He knows you're coming. He's very angry. I'll be fine." It only strengthened my resolve. I packed a light bag and boarded the plane with a cold sense of dread. I was not just a daughter visiting home. I was a lawyer walking into a hostile situation. I was walking into the trap. The taxi dropped me off a block away from my childhood home. I walked the rest of the way, my rolling suitcase clicking on the cracked pavement. It was a strategic decision. One I had learned from years of litigation. Always assess the situation before you engage. The house looked sick. My father had designed it with clean lines and wide, welcoming windows. Now, the paint was peeling, a sickly beige. My father's carefully cultivated flower beds were choked with weeds. The porch swing where we used to read was gone, leaving only 2 rusty hooks in the ceiling. It was as if the house itself was reflecting my mother's decay. I approached the door, my heart pounding, as if I were entering hostile territory, which, in many ways, I was. Before I could knock, the door opened. My mother stood there. She was thinner than I had ever seen her, her once vibrant hair now dull and streaked with gray. She was wearing a long-sleeved turtleneck despite the warm spring weather. "Elena," she whispered. Her eyes darted nervously over my shoulder to the street. "You shouldn't have come." "I had to." "Mom," I said, stepping past her into the foyer. I tried to hug her. She flinched, her body rigid, before awkwardly patting my back. The house smelled musty and closed off. The family photos that once lined the hallway me on my dad's shoulders, my mom at her university desk, were gone. They had been replaced by generic, cheap landscape prints. All evidence of my father, and of my own existence, had been erased from the walls. "Marco will be home in an hour," Mom said, ushering me into the kitchen. "You can't stay here. He said, if you ever came back, he wouldn't be responsible for his actions." "Is that a threat?" "Mom," I asked, my voice firm but quiet. I gestured to her turtleneck. "Or is this? Has he hurt you? Show me your arms." No, she said, her hands fluttering. I'm just clumsy. Ifel. You know how it is. Getting older. I'm a lawyer. Mom, I spend all day listening to people lie. Please, don't lie to me." I kept my voice gentle. "Show me your arms." Her face crumpled. After a long, agonizing moment of hesitation, she slowly rolled up her right sleeve. My breath caught. Her pale skin was a roadmap of purple and yellow bruises, in various stages of healing, and there, on her forearm, were distinct, finger-shaped bruises, unmistakable. "He didn't mean it," she whispered, pulling the sleeve down quickly, as if I were the one judging her. "He lost a big contracting job, a huge one. The stress, it makes him drink. And when he drinks, He just gets so upset. It's not his fault. I felt a cold, sharp rage, the kind I usually reserved for opposing counsel. Mom, listen to yourself. I pleaded, keeping my voice level. You are making excuses for the man who is hurting you. This is classic abuse. You were a librarian. You know the signs. You would have reported this. She turned away. Busying herself by making tea neither of us would drink. It's not that simple. Elena, where would I go? I have no money. He controls all the accounts. I have no job. No friends left. He's made sure of that. You could come with me. Right now, we could pack a bag and be gone before he gets home. She shook her head, tears rolling down her cheeks. He would find us. He checks my phone. He checks the mileage on the car. He said, if I ever tried to leave. Her voice trailed off. We were interrupted by the sound of his car in the driveway. My mother's face drained of all color. He's early, she whispered, pure panic in her eyes. Marco burst through the door moments later. He had aged, his frame thicker, his face ruddy with alcohol. His eyes narrowed when he saw me at the kitchen table. Well, he said, his voice a low, dangerous rumble. The princess returns. He was so arrogant, so dismissive. He still saw me as that 7-year-old. Hello, Marco, I replied evenly. My military discipline, learned in the trenches of corporate law, kept my voice steady. I'm here to visit my mother. Your mother. He emphasized the word. Has been doing just fine without you. Suddenly. You care. I've always cared. I countered. And I've always worried about her. Here. With you. His face darkened. But before he could respond, a knock came at the front door. It was Mrs. Peterson from next door, holding a pie. Marco's transformation was instant and grotesque. His scowl vanished, replaced by a wide, charming smile. Barbara, how wonderful, he gushed, opening the door wider. Come in, and look who's here for a surprise visit. Our Elena, back from the big city. We're so proud of her. Mrs. Peterson smiled warmly at me. Oh, Elena, look at you. A big shot lover. Your parents must be so proud. I noticed how he positioned himself. Your parents. How easily he had rewritten our family story. After Peterson left, Marco's mask dropped. You have some nerve, he hissed, his voice low. Showing up here. After everything I've done for you and your mother. All you've done, I challenged. Rising to my feet. You mean isolating her? Controlling her? Leaving bruises on her arms? He took a threatening step toward me. You watch your mouth in my house. This is not your house. I shot back, my voice like ice. This is my father's house. The mortgage is in Mom's name. You're just a parasite. His hand twitched. He was going to hit me. I saw it in his eyes. Let him try. I thought, I am not a frightened teenager. I am an associate at Harrison and Sterling. The awareness must have shown in my stance. Because he pulled back. He changed tactics. Your mother, he said, is a grown woman. Tell her. Isabella, tell your daughter how happy you are. Mom looked between us. Terrified. We manage. Elena, please. I knew then. I could not save her today. His hold was too deep. I'm staying at the Hyatt downtown. I said, ignoring Marco. I'll be here for the week. Mom, I am taking you to lunch tomorrow. Alone. That's not happening. Marco snapped. Actually, I said, reaching into my purse and pulling out my phone. It is. I took the liberty of documenting those bruises on Mom's arms. I have some very good friends at the state bar. They'd be very interested to see these photos if my mother doesn't meet me for lunch tomorrow at noon. It was a bluff. A partial one. But he didn't know that. His face contorted with rage. He was cornered. Fine. He spat. Lunch. 1 hour. The next day, Mom met me at a small cafe. Marco drove her there and waited in the parking lot, his car visible from our table. She was a wreck, checking her watch every 5 minutes. Mom, how bad is it? The truth came out in fragments. He had lost his job months ago. Not just one client. He was deep in debt. He was drinking constantly. The verbal abuse had escalated to pushing. Then, to hitting. Why do you stay? I begged. Where would I go? She echoed. And he threatened you. Elena. He said if I tried to leave, he would find me, and then he would find you. He said lawyers can have accidents. Too. A cold fear settled in my stomach. This was more dangerous than I thought. My hour was up. As I walked her back to the car, I pressed a small package into her hand, a burner phone, and a packet of legal resources I had printed at the office. Hide this, I whispered, just in case. I had failed. I couldn't get her out. I returned to my hotel. Defeated, I realized my presence was only making things worse for her. I would have to retreat, regroup, and consult with the partners back home. This wasn't just a domestic dispute anymore. This was a threat against me. That was 3 months ago. Now, I was back in my fortress, my corporate apartment. It was just after midnight on a Friday. I was exhausted from a 70-hour work week. A pounding on my door, so forceful it shook the walls. My first thought was David, or perhaps building security. Who is it? I called out, stumbling from my bed, half asleep. Security. Ma'am, we have a report of a water leak from your unit. It was a mistake born of exhaustion and trust in my building security. I turned the deadbolt. The door burst open with explosive force, slamming into me and sending me staggering backward. Marco stood in the doorway, his face purple with rage, his breath a heavy wave of alcohol. The shock paralyzed me. How? How did he get past the doorman? How did he get to my floor? You, he roared, charging at me. You thought you could turn her against me. You thought you could take her. He grabbed my throat and shoved me against the wall. My training, my legal mind, it all vanished. I was 17 again. Mom, I screamed, seeing a figure behind him in the hallway. My mother, Isabella, stepped into the light. She stood in the doorway, her face hollow, her eyes vacant. She made no move to help. She just stood there, a passive witness. Mom, I cried out, clawing at his hands. Help me call someone. She didn't move. The betrayal was a physical blow, sharper than any pain. Marco laughed. A cruel. Ugly sound. She knows her place now. It took some convincing, but she understands. He lunged at me again. I sidestepped, but he was fueled by rage. He grabbed the heavy glass deal toy from my desk, an award for a case I had won. He swung it wildly. I raised my arm to block. The heavy glass connected with my forearm. Pain exploded through my arm as I felt the bone snap. I screamed. Not so tough now. Are you? Miss Big Shot Lawyer, he snarled, advancing on me. I fell back onto the floor, clutching my shattered arm. He was on top of me, pinning me with his weight. You are pathetic. He spat, his face inches from mine. Just like your mother. His hands went to my throat. He was going to kill me. Through the haze of pain, I looked past him. My mother was still standing in the doorway, motionless, watching. My good arm, my left arm, fumbled for my phone on the floor beside me. He was too busy gloating to notice. As his fingers tightened, cutting off my air, I managed to unlock it. My contacts. Not 911. Not David. Mr. Harrison. His name was at the top. With the last of my strength, I typed 3 letters. Saws. And my address. 12B. I hit send. The edges of my vision went dark. The last thing I saw before the blackness took me was my mother, still standing in the doorway, her expression unchanged. As her husband killed her only child, Consciousness returned in fragments. The first thing I registered was the smell. A sharp, chemical smell of antiseptic. The second was a steady, rhythmic beeping. My eyes felt glued shut. I forced them open. The light was blindingly white. She's waking up. That voice. I knew that voice. It was David. He blinked. My vision slowly focusing. I saw David's concerned face hovering above me. And next to him, looking completely out of place in a hospital room, was Mr. Harrison. He was still in his suit, though his tie was loosened. What? My throat felt like sandpaper. The single word was a painful croak. Don't try to talk. Elena, David said, placing a hand on my uninjured arm. You're safe. You're at the hospital. You've been in and out for about 18 hours. The memories flooded back. The door bursting open. Marco's face. Purple with rage. The glass award shattering. My mother. Standing in the doorway. My mother. The betrayal. Mom. I tried to sit up. A surge of panic and rage cutting through the medication. Easy. Elena. Mr. Harrison's voice was firm. Commanding. It was the same voice he used in the boardroom. You are safe. We have you. A doctor appeared, checking my vitals, shining a light in my eyes. I learned the extent of the damage. A severe concussion. A compound fracture of my right ulna, requiring surgery to set. Multiple contusions. And deep, angry, bruising around my throat from the strangulation. The doctor said I was lucky. If help had arrived even 60 seconds later, the damage to my trachea could have been permanent. Or fatal. When the doctor left, Mr. Harrison sat in the chair by the bed. David stood beside him. Your text came through at 12:17 a.m. Mr. Harrison said, his voice quiet. Clinical. SAWS. 12B. He had received it. My disparity. Last-second gamble. It had worked. I knew you were not the type for melodrama. Elena. He continued. I called building security immediately. Your doorman is ex-FBI. I trust him. I told him it was a code-red emergency for a Harrison and Sterling associate. Then, I called the head of our litigation department and told him to meet me at your address. He had not called 911. He had called security and the head of litigation. He had activated the firm. Our security team was at your door in under 3 minutes. He said, they have a master key fob. They heard the struggle, bypassed the lock, and found him on top of you. You were already unconscious. They detained him. Your mother was in the hallway. She was unresponsive, catatonic. He paused, his eyes hardening. Marco was apprehended. He is in custody. The police arrived after our team had secured the scene. Your mother was taken in for questioning and is now under psychiatric observation. The news that my mother was in custody sent a new wave of distress through me. Despite the betrayal, despite the image of her standing there, a cold, hollow part of me knew she was a victim. My mother, I whispered. He controls her. He broke her. The authorities are aware of that. Elena, David said gently. Mr. Harrison made sure they understood the context of long-term coercive control. She's not being held as an accomplice. She's being held for her own protection. Mr. Harrison leaned forward slightly. This is what you need to understand. Elena, he did not just attack you. He attacked an associate of this firm. He attacked my family. We are handling this. We are handling this. The words echoed in the quiet room. Over the next few days, as the fog of medication lifted, the full story emerged. The firm's lawyers, my lawyers, had taken over. They were coordinating with the district attorney's office. They were the ones who had searched Marco's car, which he had parked 3 blocks away. Inside, they found a roll of duct tape, a set of heavy-duty zip ties, and a one-way plane ticket to Brazil. Leaving the next morning, this was not an impulsive act of rage. This was a planned execution. He had driven across the country with my mother, forcing her to reveal my address, the one I had kept so private. He had planned to silence me. The big-shot lawyer, the only person who could truly expose him. He had planned to kill me and then flee the country. Mr. Harrison visited me again on the third day. I was sitting up, my arm in a heavy cast and sling. An attack on one of us is an attack on all of us. Elena, he said, standing by the window, I want you to know that the full resources of this firm are at your disposal. The best medical care, the best physical therapy, and, of course, the best legal representation. You are not to worry about a single bill. You are not to worry about your cases. Your only job is to heal. The concept of family had been so twisted in my life. It had meant pain, control, and betrayal. But hearing those words, seeing the protective fury in my boss's eyes, I finally understood. This was family. This was a fortress. This was the family I had built. For the first time since the attack, I cried, not from fear or pain, from gratitude. A week after the attack, a social worker named Ms. Patel arrived, and she brought my mother. Isabella looked clearer. She was pale and trembling, but the vacant, hollow look in her eyes was gone. Ms. Patel explained that she had been in a specialized facility. Marco had been feeding her an increasingly high dose of anxiety medication for years, keeping her in a constant, pliable fog. The doctors had spent the last week carefully detoxing her. Elena, my mother whispered. The moment she saw me, her face crumpled with a grief that was raw and real. Oh, Candace. Oh, Elena. I am so sorry. I stood there. I watched. I had rehearsed this moment in my head. I had planned to scream at her, to ask her, how could you? But looking at the broken woman in front of me, all my rage dissolved. It was replaced by the cold, analytical mind of a lawyer. He broke you, I said. It was not an accusation. It was a statement of fact. That's what abusers do. They isolate, they manipulate, and they drug you until there is nothing left. That wasn't you in the doorway. I opened my uninjured arm. She came to me, carefully, and we held each other. Two survivors of the same man. The preliminary hearing was 2 weeks after the attack. I was discharged from the hospital, my arm in a sling. But I was there. I walked into the courtroom wearing a crisp black suit, my left arm free. In my right arm, a visible testament to the attack. I was not alone. David was on one side of me. On the other was Mr. Fading 5 Quadding, Harrison. And behind us sat 3 of the firm's top litigators. Marco was brought in, wearing an orange jumpsuit. He looked smaller, his arrogance gone, replaced by a sullen confusion. He looked at me and started to sneer. Then he saw Mr. Harrison. His eyes widened. He looked behind me and saw the row of lawyers in their $5,000 suits. His face went white. The realization hit him like a physical blow. He was a fool. He had always underestimated me. He had not just attacked a 6-year-old girl. He had attacked a junior associate at Harrison and Sterling. He had attacked an institution. The charges were read: first-degree assault, attempted murder, breaking and entering with intent, interstate stalking. The prosecutor, who had met with my firm's lawyers all week, presented the evidence. The hotel security footage of Marco dragging my mother from the car, the cell phone records, the photos of my injuries, and then the zip ties and the duct tape. The judge denied bail. When it was my turn to give a victim's impact statement, I looked directly at Marco. My voice was steady. It was the voice I used in court. The man before you did not just attack me, I said, my voice filling the room. He spent years systematically destroying my mother. He isolated her. He controlled her. And he tried to silence me when I became a threat. I looked at him, but you failed to understand something. Marco, when you attacked me, you didn't just attack an individual. You attacked a lawyer. You attacked someone who is part of something much, much stronger than you. You attacked my family. 3 months after the attack, Marco accepted a plea deal. Faced with the mountain of evidence and the army of lawyers arrayed against him, he pleaded guilty. He was sentenced to 15 years in state prison. No possibility of early parole. My mother completed her treatment. The firm's advocacy program helped her secure a new apartment and a new job, working in the university library again, the place she had loved. We began the slow, difficult process of rebuilding, both of us in therapy. My physical recovery was long. My arm would never be quite the same, but the firm was true to its word. I returned to full duty. My place secure. 2 years have passed since that night. Last month, I was promoted to junior partner. At the ceremony, Mr. Harrison was the one who pinned my new insignia, alongside my mother. My first act as partner was to create the Isabella Project. It's the firm's new pro bono division. Fully funded, specializing in high-risk domestic violence cases. We use the firm's full resources, our lawyers, our investigators, our forensic accountants to help victims who are trapped, just as my mother was. My father taught me how to build. Marco tried to tear everything down. But my new family, the one I chose, taught me how to build a fortress. And now, I spend my days building fortresses for others. Frank sought to silence me that night. Instead, he gave me a voice. He gave me a story that now helps others find the courage to write their own. And that is the most fitting justice of all. What chains are you ready to break today? If my story resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button and share this video with someone who might need to be reminded of their own strength. Let me know in the comments below about a time you found your true family in an unexpected place. Together, we can build a community that lifts each other up. Thank you for listening, and remember, your darkest moment does not define you. How you rise from it, that is your true legacy.